You've probably come across a man like this. Maybe you've dated him. Maybe he's a close friend. Maybe deep down, you are him. A man who carries a light in his eyes, a certain charm in the way he talks about life. He speaks like someone destined for something extraordinary. So much potential, so many dreams, such a deep connection to ideas, to creativity, to what could be. He talks about big plans, about starting a business, writing a book, living in another country, finding the one. But there's always a reason why it hasn't happened yet. Not the right time, not the right woman, not the right alignment of stars. And at first it's fascinating. His presence feels different. He makes you believe in possibilities. He's spontaneous, magnetic, a little mysterious. His life seems free of the usual rules, the boring routines, the pressure to fit in. And that's what makes him so damn attractive. He seems to have escaped the cage everyone else is trapped in. While others are busy building a future, he's out there living like time doesn't apply to him. But the longer you stay around him, the more that magic starts to fade. And slowly, almost silently, you begin to see it for what it is. Not freedom, but avoidance. You start noticing things. Deadlines missed, bills unpaid, promises broken, projects started but never finished, excuses dressed as poetry, dreams that are recycled over and over, slightly reworded but never pursued. And yet he keeps talking, keeps dreaming, keeps performing the role of the man who's about to become. But the becoming never happens. This is the puer aeternus, the eternal boy. Carl Jung wrote about him, and you can find him everywhere once you know what to look for. He's not just a man who avoids responsibility. He's a man who lives in suspended time. He's always almost ready, almost committed, almost grounded, but never fully. He floats between ideas, between people, between moments, never quite arriving. And here's what makes it dangerous. He doesn't look lost, he looks inspired. That's the trap. He's not a mess in the usual way. In fact, he might seem ahead of others, emotionally intense, spiritually tuned, philosophically awake. But life doesn't respond to ideas alone, and eventually the world starts asking for something more concrete. The relationship needs presence. The rent needs paying, the dream needs doing, and the puer doesn't know how to respond. He retreats. Or worse, he lashes out. He blames the system, the culture, his parents, his trauma, anything that takes the weight off his own shoulders, because responsibility to him feels like death, the death of magic, of spontaneity, of freedom. But here's the paradox. The more he avoids responsibility, the less free he becomes. He starts to depend on others to carry what he won't, emotionally, financially, practically. And without realizing it, he becomes a burden. Charming, yes, but still a burden. And what about love? That's where it hurts the most. Because the puer falls hard. He idealizes romance. He craves deep connection, deep meaning. He wants love that is pure, wild, unfiltered. But he's terrified of what comes after the first high, the real work. He resists structure. He resists being fully seen. Because if someone sees him, truly sees him, they might ask for consistency. They might ask for growth. They might ask him to choose. And the puer doesn't choose. He delays. He dances around decisions. He plays in possibility. Because to choose something means killing off every other option. And he would rather lose you than lose his sense of limitless potential. That's the cruel part. He doesn't leave because he doesn't care. He leaves because staying feels like confinement. And yet, in leaving over and over, he slowly destroys every chance at something real. This man is not evil. He's not broken, but he's lost. Caught in a fantasy of eternal becoming. And unless he wakes up, unless he descends from the clouds and begins to root into something real, he will grow old, still waiting for life to begin. So ask yourself honestly, have you ever felt this in yourself? That quiet resistance to structure? That deep craving for freedom that's really just fear of being still, of being seen, of being responsible for your own time, your own direction, your own choices? If the answer is yes, that's not something to be ashamed of, but it is something to face. Because the puer can't be killed. He's not supposed to be. He's a necessary part of the psyche. He brings imagination, vision, renewal, but he's not supposed to lead. When the boy runs the man's life, things fall apart. Not immediately, but slowly, painfully, beautifully even. And it always ends the same way. Dreams unfulfilled, relationships sabotaged, and a deep sadness that never finds words. That's what we're talking about here. Not failure, but escape. not weakness, but disconnection. And until the puer meets reality and chooses to stay, he will never become what he was meant to be. He doesn't say it out loud, but it's always there, his inner narrative. I'm not ready. I don't want to force it. I need more time. But behind all these poetic excuses, the truth is brutal. He is afraid of growing up, afraid of failing, afraid of being judged, afraid of becoming just ordinary. So what does he do? He sabotages anything that demands maturity, not consciously, but it shows in his patterns, the dream job he lets slip, the partner he pushes away, the promises he breaks softly with charm, and the pain, it doesn't just affect him, it touches everyone around him. His romantic partners suffer the most. They fall for a man who seems so full of essence, so alive with potential. He says all the right things, he tells them he loves them, he talks about the future. But when it's time to act, to show up, to build something real, he vanishes, quietly, elegantly, tragically. His family watches, heartbroken, as he wastes talents, intelligence, and years. His friends start to pull away, tired of giving energy to someone who's always stuck in the cycle of almost. Always nearly there, never really arriving. And all of it leads to a feeling that's hard to describe, but impossible to ignore. Emotional suffocation. It's like watching someone drown in shallow water. He's not incapable, he just refuses to swim. He's emotionally paralyzed, stuck in a kind of psychological adolescence that never ends. And what makes it even more tragic is this: he doesn't even realize it. In his eyes, he's not the problem. The world is. It's too rigid, too boring, too structured. People who grow up are seen as traitors to freedom. So he isolates himself, convincing himself that he's staying true to who he is, when in fact he's a slave to fear. Carl Jung said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The shadow of the puer cannot be avoided. It must be faced. The problem isn't that he carries a child inside him. We all do. The problem is when that child becomes a tyrant. A soft-spoken, charismatic tyrant who sabotages every chance at a full, real life. And that sabotage doesn't come from nowhere. The puer is rarely alone. Behind almost every man who refuses to grow up, there's someone silently feeding that refusal. A hidden force keeping him in emotional infancy. And that force is often the symbolic mother. In Jungian psychology, she's called the archetypal mother. At first, her presence feels nurturing, safe, comforting, but when her influence becomes too strong, she transforms into something darker, the devouring mother. Not a monster, just someone who loves too much, protects too much, and unconsciously cripples the man she wants to help. Sometimes it's a literal mother, overprotective. Always solving problems, always picking him up after he falls, never letting him struggle, never letting him fail. So he never builds resilience, never learns autonomy. Other times, it's a symbolic mother, a girlfriend, a wife, a female friend, or even grandmother, someone who steps into the role of caretaker, emotional container, unconditional supporter. She means well, she believes she's helping, but unconsciously, she demands eternal loyalty in return. And that's when the puer stops seeking a partner. He starts seeking a replacement mother, someone who will understand him without challenging him, accept him without asking for more, support him without boundaries. It's not love, it's fusion. It's a cozy, warm prison. As long as he's being taken care of, he never has to act, he never has to risk, he never has to grow. And the tragic thing, the woman in that mother role gets trapped too. She thinks she's loving him, but in truth, she's feeding a psychic dependency that drains them both. Because real love isn't fusion. Real love demands difference and growth and separation. Jung said the greatest tragedy is when the mother refuses to let the child be born psychologically. That means even if the body ages, the psyche remains childlike, emotionally undeveloped, craving comfort, avoiding reality. It's the man who's 35, 40, 50, and still waiting for someone else to carry him, still looking for warmth instead of walking into the world. This becomes even more dangerous in romantic relationships, because the puer falls in love fast, deeply. He idealizes. He believes he's finally found the one. He places all his hope in her. But what he really wants isn't a partner, it's salvation. He wants her to heal his wounds, fill his emptiness, give his life meaning. But the moment that love starts asking for something real, commitment, structure, maturity, he flees. He pulls away. he ghosts. Or worse, he blames her. Because deep down, he never wanted a partner. He wanted a mother disguised as a lover. Breaking this pattern is painful. It means separation, loss, cutting a bond that once felt safe. But that's where real growth begins. The moment the puer stops looking outward for rescue and starts turning inward for responsibility. Because yes, growing up hurts, but not growing up hurts more. One destroys your illusions, the other destroys your life. And that's what we'll look at next. The path forward. The price of maturity, and the deep, quiet power that comes from leaving psychic childhood behind. There comes a moment in a man's life when the mask begins to crack. The dreams he never pursued start to feel heavy, not exciting. The relationships he let slip through his fingers leave quiet scars. The world no longer feels wide open but limited, and slowly, painfully, he's forced to face the question he's avoided his whole life. How long will I keep living like I have all the time in the world? This is the breaking point, the moment when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. But make no mistake, this process of growing up is not gentle. Carl Jung called it a psychic birth, and like all births, it comes with pain, blood, and symbolic death. It starts when you finally allow the fantasy to collapse. When you accept that there is no perfect moment, no perfect partner, no magical breakthrough that will save you, that life won't wait for you to feel ready, that no one is coming to rescue you. And more than that, you realize that growing up isn't a betrayal of your essence, it's how you give it shape. But in order to build something real, you must first grieve. Grieve the idealized boy inside you. Grieve the future you imagined but never lived. Grieve the promises you made to yourself that were never kept. And most painfully of all, grieve the symbolic mother. The person, the memory, the archetype that kept you safe, warm, and dependent. Because transformation isn't about killing the boy inside you, it's about no longer letting him lead. It's time for the man to take over. And what does that man do? He builds. He chooses structure, even when chaos feels easier. He stays when escape is tempting. He works with focus, even without motivation. He shows up in relationships even after the spark fades. He commits, not because it's comfortable, but because it's right. He trades the rush of what's next for the quiet power of what stays. Here's the secret. When the eternal boy is finally integrated, he doesn't disappear. He becomes your fuel. He becomes the source of your vision, your intuition, your creativity. But now, instead of floating in fantasy, those gifts are channeled into action, into something real, into a life that stands. That's what real rebirth looks like, when the dreamer stops escaping the world and starts creating with it. But here's the hard truth. This transformation won't happen on its own. Many men reach this point, tired, disillusioned, aware that they need to grow, but they don't know how. They know the old ways don't work. They know they've outgrown the boy, but they don't know how to become the man. And that's exactly why we're having this conversation. Because if you've listened this far, it means you feel it. Something in you knows it's time. You've seen this pattern in others, maybe lived it in your own life. And there is no shame in that, none. Every man carries the temptation to remain a child in a world that demands maturity. We've all run from responsibility. We've all wished for comfort before we were ready to earn it. But now it's time to stop running. Because life doesn't pause, it challenges, it confronts, it demands. And sooner or later, you'll have to choose. Stay trapped in the world of potential, or cross the bridge into the world of reality. Into the world where things happen, where something gets built, where you become who you were meant to be, not someday, but now. This decision is yours, not when it feels easy, not when everything lines up, but when you find the courage to stop hiding, to stop blaming, to stop waiting. Because as Jung said, the man who doesn't confront his own demons will keep meeting them over and over at every turn in life. The puer aeternus is one of those demons, and he's clever. He hides behind noble words, freedom, authenticity, sensitivity, creativity. But in practice, he rots your roots, he drains your strength, he makes sure nothing solid ever grows, and he won't leave on his own. You have to face him, own him, integrate him, and most of all, you have to outgrow him. Because that's what maturity really is. It's not perfection, it's not losing your joy, it's not becoming boring or rigid. Maturity is what's born when you stop waiting for someone to save you, and finally begin saving yourself. When you realize that responsibility is not a burden, but a source of strength. When you understand that true freedom doesn't mean doing whatever you want, it means being able to build something that lasts.